Welcome to episode 112 of the Tectonic Takes podcast. With me, Ivan, today, we've got Abram, Devon, and our special guest, Casey. So, Abram, how are you doing today? Devon, how about you?
It's a good day. It's a good week. I just had a meeting with my bosses, and they just hit me up with permanent full-time work. So
Congratulations.
can't wipe the smile on my face no matter what. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Good week so far.
And we saved the best for last as we do for our guest. Casey, how are you doing today?
I'm good. It's a little bit of work stress because I am going to Sweden next week. So since I will be gone, I'm trying to play catch up. And for better or worse, I am self-employed. So the boss is chill. She just forgets to pay me sometimes is the always fun joke. But that also means that the PTO program is not quite as amazing as we like. So more work I do now, less I have to do in Sweden. And that's been what's going on.
Right. So with some great soccer matches on the horizon here in the United States and Sweden for you, and then, of course, that lovely vacation. It's an exciting time for sure, and we're excited to have you here. So this is Casey's first time on the Tectonic Takes podcast. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your connection to soccer and how you came across your favorite soccer teams?
Sure. So played growing up. I mainly do soccer content on TikTok. That's where most people usually find me. I'm at Casey's on the Case if you're ever over there. I am an LAFC fan, which is, I think, why y'all have generously allowed me to be on this podcast episode today. And I grew up in the Bay Area, but ended up becoming an LAFC fan because I was living in LA around the time that I decided to care about MLS, candidly and somewhat embarrassingly. And I will be also brutally honest, the merch got me. Like, the merch is really sweet. I like the color scheme. The celebrities, the stadium, it was all very fun. So that's how I ended up with that team. And then my EPL club is Arsenal. I will also throw out there. So that is also a fun fandom of the moment.
Yes, definitely. And we'll very briefly, since we'll focus more on the LAC stuff, how has your heart rate been watching Arsenal this season?
I have never known a day of peace as an Arsenal fan to begin with. Like, I'm pretty sure my doctor at some point is going to be like, have you considered not? Like, between this and the Raiders, it's just like, it's always something. But at least it's been like happy heart, racing lately. So, and I have appropriate expectations, I think, for the end of this season. I prefer this over, when I'm chanting about just making sure we try to get a coaching change or something. And there's been a lot of that over the last decade or so. So overall, good time, but yes, stressful existence.
Right. And I think the universe is also taunting you 20 years after the invincible Arsenal season. Another club, Bayer Leverkusen, gets the invincibles so far at this point in the season. And just to get everyone else in on this, if you could describe the Premier League title race in one word, Devon, what would you choose?
Well, this is coming from a Spurs fan, so disheartening.
Disheartening, fair enough.
But incredibly entertaining between Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal. You really can't go wrong with either three of the teams. Obviously, with me, there's one real option. I have a bunch of Liverpool friends that I banter with, so despite wanting to see Man City win, I don't know, either Liverpool or City. But having Arsenal break that kind of that league lock, it would be pretty cool for Arteta and all the guys that they've spent money to bring in.
My one word to describe the Premier League title race is chaos. And I think it's also an apt way to describe MLS at any point of the season, especially right now at the time of recording where the Seattle Sounders have woken up from hibernation and they're beating Philadelphia Union 3-0. And I think a good form of chaos is that the Quakes have decided to stop losing for once. They managed to pick up a point 1-1 against Nashville on the road. And considering that the one goal, I must emphasize this, just one goal came from the Hani Mukhtar magic boot, I think we can live with ourselves with that defensive performance. And I think it's just a sigh of relief right now. So, Devon, what are some of the key takeaways you got from that Nashville game?
Some of the key takeaways is Nashville is still good on defense, but San Jose Earthquakes still bad on defense. Despite being in having it be an away game, we still managed to pick up a point somehow with Lucci, who is constantly under the San Jose Earthquakes conceded more than 2 goals per game, 2 or more. And this is the first time this season where we've, conceded less than 2, only 1. And that was basically off of a Hani Mukhtar absolute rocket from outside the box. Nothing you can do about that. We've given a lot of praise to the goalkeeper, but yeah, Yarbrough had no chance of saving that shot. But I'd like to give, individual praise to Jack Skane for the goal and the whole build up to it. And I want to say Nico Tsoukaris is an absolute unit as a cam, and having him compete with Hernan Lopez, our new designated player, will be an interesting feat in the training days to come.
Skane rewarded with a squad of the match week selection for him. And I know you're familiar with Mukhtar because he and Carlos Vela had a few Golden Boot races. What do you think of seeing that result on your score checking, Casey?
I mean, I think it's just all been so chaotic so far to start the season that nothing surprises me at this point. It's like, I'm like, you bring up Carlos Vela and then my whole heart just sinks immediately because then I'm reminded of that whole saga. But yeah, it's been so far a fun start to the season, and I'm excited to also see just kind of some newer folks getting involved on the score lines for certain teams too.
Well, the Earthquakes game lacked in the usual goals that they conceded. A lot of those goals ended up being scored in the game between LAFC and Portland Timbers. Casey, did you get a chance to catch that game?
I did catch that game, yes. I felt very good to begin with, and we had kind of a nervy start to the season too, albeit we've been able to rely at least generally on our home record, so felt good about that at first, and obviously things were going well. And then it got very nervy. And we really, as bad as our road record has been to start the season, cannot afford to drop points at home. We just can't. It's our only real way to stay in it until Giroud comes and saves us. So, I'm glad we eventually pulled it out, but it was nervier than I would have really liked.
Yep. The goal scoring in that game went Kamal Miller with the own goal in the 44th minute, usually reliable Canadian international. Timothy Tillman got the second goal and the first actual LAFC scored goal with the assist from Oliveira. And that's where LAFC were comfortable for a moment. And then at the 65th minute, Jonathan Rodriguez scored for Portland. Santiago Moreno, who set up Rodriguez, ended up scoring the equalizer 2-2. And then who else but Denis Bouanga to score the late winner. It's been an up and down season for Bouanga. What do you make of his performances so far?
It's been, he doesn't look quite like himself, and he's had a couple of matches, including this one, where I was like, are we finally getting back to form? But I think the key here and why it took him till the second half to score is because that first goal he scored that got called back, he did not do the flip afterwards. I think that was the issue. If you don't flip, then you don't get to keep scoring. I think the flip kind of builds his confidence. So that's I think the key for him is more flipping going forward. But he's great. I just think right now with the rest of our attack lacking and having a lot of trouble clicking, it's pretty easy to keep him somewhat isolated. But on top of that, he has not quite had his same form in front of goal, and we all know that just kind of happens to folks sometimes. So hopefully that starts clicking again. I think eventually I gotta imagine he wants to still be star of the show even with Giroud coming. So yeah, you gotta start scoring the goals.
Yep, and you might have a point with that logic because yesterday I was playing pickup basketball at the 24-Hour Fitness in San Leandro, and I hit a game-winning shot. It wasn't anything crazy. It was a mid-range bank shot, but it was the game-winning shot, and I was just like shaking people's hands afterwards, and one of my teammates was like, you have to flex after that. It's like, yeah, maybe next time. And then we ended up losing the next game. So, yeah, I got to celebrate a little bit after scoring that shot. With the Quakes only conceding one goal in their previous game, how big is that going to be in a big test trying to contain Denis Bouanga? Because he's got his licks in previous games against the Quakes before, Devon.
It's going to be crucial. Denis Bouanga, I think, is one of the most key players for LAFC, and he's done damage to us in the past. I went to the away game last season, and Bouanga was the one that I think conceded the pen, if I remember correctly. And he's a constant threat to us. So one of the things that our defense needs to do is shut down Danny Bouanga, and we'll possibly have a chance. They are a high scoring team, and we're a high conceding team. So it's kind of like a huge disadvantage for us and a huge advantage for LAFC. And I think if LAFC were to counter on high pressing Jackson Ewell, they might find an easier chance to win the game, as Jackson in recent history has made note of passing to the back line and making backwards passes. So if you press Jackson, then LAFC can push higher up the field and gain possession much higher and counter quicker.
Yep. And looking at the LAFC lineup from this last game against Portland, you go Yori in net, and then you got Palencia, Murillo, Chanot, and Hollingshead as the back line. Really solid back line there. I like bringing back Maxime Chanot. He had MLS experience with NYCFC. Now he's back for a second go-around, this time with LAFC. And another reunion, this time of a former LAFC player with Atuesta, along with Ilie and Tillman. And then the front three is where things get interesting. You got Oliveira, Bogusz listed as the striker here, and then Bouanga on the wing. So how you feel about Bouanga on the wing versus as the striker up top, Casey?
I do think he's better right there. I think he needs, though, somebody a little bit stronger playing centrally, and Bogusz has been doing his best.
He's getting up, yeah, Bogusz.
Yeah, so he's been trying. I do think Bogusz does a little bit better when he gets to sit back, kind of in the role we've had Tillman sitting in. But this is just where we're at without somebody playing centrally that really thrives playing centrally. We're kind of, our hands are somewhat tied here.
Yeah, and then I think another issue you mentioned, bringing Olivier Giroud in the summer, referring to some of that depth, particularly in the strikers off the bench. That's why you brought in the ageless Kai Kamara. You got Luis Muller here, and then some other bench options. Shigura is a really great third option at center back. And then you're looking at some younger players like Eric Duenas, Engel, and Ordaz. So who do you think are like some of the players that when you see coming off the bench, you're like, yes, these are a game changer, or do you feel like you're still waiting for that arrival of Giroud to have that?
So I really liked Martinez, who's out injured. I thought he was really lively, so that's been a massive bummer. Kai Kamara obviously has the history, so you're hoping and you want him to go in and break the record. Like, I would love to see that, especially, for LAFC, given whose record he'd be breaking. It'd be very fun. But as far as the actual available talents who folks maybe aren't as familiar with, Mueller really impressed me when he played a few weeks back. I thought he looked great. He provides good size. I also have this narrative in my head about him that's not entirely accurate, but it's much more fun as someone who, lived in Southern California as long as I did, that he's just this German guy who decided to move to Santa Monica to go to Santa Monica City College and accidentally found his way onto an MLS team. That's just a funny story in my head. I know he played at Cal Baptist and that's not entirely accurate, but it's funnier to me to think he just wanted to go to the beach and accidentally ended up in the MLS. And he's good. He looks good. So I hope we give him more time. I was disappointed that he didn't get more in Portland. I can't even remember if he ended up coming off the bench, actually. He might not have. He might have stayed on the bench.
I think he came on in the 90th minute.
I was going to say,
it was a late.
Yeah, very, very small. So I would have liked to see more from him. I think he's got some potential there.
Yeah. Any players on LAFC's roster that stand up for you, Devon, that you're kind of eyeing up for this matchup?
I just think anyone in the midfield, they all look intimidating, and obviously Bouanga. Those are the most notable names that I can think of at the moment.
Yeah. If Ilya Sanchez is not playing center back, you gotta respect that. That's just his one weakness.
Absolutely. No, but given our defense and our lack of our lack of keeping a clean sheet, I'm expecting at least 3 or 4 goals at Levi Stadium. Last year's Levi Stadium was fairly entertaining, and I'm expecting even more so this season.
Right. And now we'll switch it over to the Quakes lineup. So what they rolled with against Nashville, Yarborough and net, Acapo, Rodriguez, Beeson, and Vitor as our back four. We got Grezzo holding it down as the defensive midfielder, and Shakiris and Yule either side of him. And then Kikanovic and Espinoza as the wingers with Abobasi up top. So we can start with that midfield. And I think it starts with Grizzo. He's been the biggest focal point in trying to figure out where can San Jose Earthquakes improve, and his inconsistency has been cited as one of those biggest areas there. And Grizzo should have his handful with this midfield battle, huh, Devon?
Yeah, I agree. Grezzo's got a lot on his plate. You know, he's one of the guys that now has to be a deeper lying six than Jackson Ewell. Jackson plays more of the 8 role, but every time the Earthquakes press high, Grezzo is caught out too high, pressing against like the higher than LAFC's like backline, I guess, for example. So that's one thing that the Earthquakes have to watch out for. If Grezzo presses too high, it's easier for LAFC to counter and find space in between. Or in behind, and especially with Bogusz and Bouanga on a counter, that's already dangerous enough. Another thing to look out for is Rodriguez's high runs. If Rodriguez is cut out too high, that's another gap for Bouanga to run into.
Yep, and when you see a lot of similarities between these two midfielders in terms of there's one clear defensive-minded midfielder, one that can go either way, and one that would be more in line with the attacking midfield role. For LAFC, that would be Ilie, and then Ewell and Atuesta are kind of that in-betweener spot. And then you have Tillman, who is very much attacking-minded. Does that line up with your assessment, Casey?
Yeah, I think that's accurate for the central midfield. Although, like, sometimes Atuesta will drop back in and they'll play almost in a double pivot if it's necessary. But that's like Tillman is not here to play defense.
Yeah. What, if anything, has changed with Atuesta from his first stint with LAFC to now his role in this time?
Sure. So I think that he and Ilie, when they were both the only ones in the team, really did play a similar role. They're both like kind of prototypical sixes and were really great at occupying that space and distributing. I think that it's been a little bit interesting having them both there because they're still sussing each other out. And I don't think they fully know exactly who's going to go where because we don't, for the most part, play with a double pivot. We do tend to want somebody kind of doing more of a box-to-box thing. And I think they're still figuring out who it's going to be. So that's been the issue. And I think they've both, as a result, been a little bit disappointing. Kellen Acosta was kind of better at filling the gap there in that sense. So we'll see. Some people are very happy with Atuesta being back. I personally am fine with it, but I just don't think he's been as lights out as he was his first run with us.
Right. And I think throughout LAFC's stint in MLS so far in 6 or 7 years they've almost consistently been a 4-3-3, right?
Literally.
Yeah.
I think maybe the first season we had a couple of times where we did something different, but no. Bob Bradley, not a man known for change. And Cherundolo also was like, well, if it ain't broke. So we've actually pretty much never played a different formation.
Yeah. You know who misses Bob Bradley, Devon? Caleb Porter, because he's taking a lot of heat as the most hated coach in MLS right now.
That's true, yes.
And speaking of, those early days of LAFC, when one of their first signings announced was Carlos Vela, it brings to attention how there's the rumors that San Diego's MLS club could be bringing in Chucky Lozano as one of their first signings for 2025. And, of course, the big allure for that is because owing to California as a whole, but especially SoCal's deep connection with the Mexican subculture, how you think Lozano would fare in MLS, Devon?
Well, I don't know too much about Lozano, but I know he's a fierce competitor, a dangerous man on the ball, and the fact that he's going to now join, the ultimate California lineup, that it's quite entertaining. And I'm not sure how he's going to fit in with this potential rivalry, the Southern California triple rivalry. We're going to be the only ones up here, like, alone, isolated. We don't have Sacramento or anything. It's all downhill.
Yeah. You excited for the prospects of Lozano in 2025, Casey?
I am. So I think it'll be exciting. I mean, I guess San Diego makes me nervous for a variety of reasons. I do think he'll ultimately be successful. Just because I have a feeling that the fans there are really going to come out to support him in a way that, we got the support for Carlos Vela. Like during 2019, when Carlos Vela had that Golden Boot run, there were multiple fans in any given game. Like, I mean, probably hundreds in Mexico jerseys who had come just to see Carlos Vela, and they just wanted a Carlos Vela goal, and it was intoxicating and great. So I have to imagine San Diego will be able to capture a lot of that same synergy, and they're probably going to be a scary team for that reason.
Right.
I'd imagine they're trying to hit their target audience too, and they're hitting it with a $12 million transfer fee. That's insane.
Yeah,
that's double our record, and not even they haven't even started their inaugural season yet.
And their added situation is, of course, San Diego and Tijuana share a linked metro area, and many people cross the border between San Diego and Tijuana for shopping, visiting family, work, on a daily basis. So there's that accessibility that not even LA has in that kind of easy access situation. And even though San Jose Earthquakes didn't bring in Mexican players of the same national team caliber, the fact that they had those links to Chivas with, of course, Matias Almeida for so long, it was pretty awesome sight to see so many people come into San Jose Earthquakes. And yes, while many of them adorn the red and white stripes of Chivas jerseys, that they also embrace San Jose Earthquakes as well as a result. And now it'll be interesting to see, what will happen when Chivas and San Jose face off with, of course, KCAL in the League's Cup. So in a culture that for a long time within the United States, there was a lot of fear of, in terms of having USA versus Mexico matches. Oh no, we can't have it California or Chicago or Texas because of the diasporas, that there's going to be a majority of Mexican American fans. And while we understand the logic behind it, to have that kind of fear is irrational, and also isolating the Mexican American and Latinx fans that aren't Mexican as well, that want to support the United States. So seeing the opposite, where at least at the MLS club level, that there's going to be this kind of links to the community, is very important. And speaking of the community here with San Jose Earthquakes, I think that we are really excited to see Nico Shakiris, even with the addition of Hernan Lopez, that he has been given this opportunity, that he is healthy, and that he has been able to step up. And when we got a chance to speak with him at the press conference, he remained very stout and confident, even more so than Luchi Gonzalez does after a loss, that they're competitive and they want to turn things around. How integral do you think Shakiris will be to this turnaround, Devon, if the Quakes are able to do what Austin have done so far and change a hopeless season into a potentially promising one?
Well, Nico is an ultimate competitor at heart, and I firmly believe that everything he says, as his dedication to the club is absolutely true. And I think his work ethic shows, beyond his words. He's definitely like a box-to-box cam. If he needs to play CB and sees Rodriguez high, he'll go back into the back line. If he notices space after his first touch and his turn, he's taking that space, not even a hesitation. I think there's going to be some fierce competition between he and Hernan Lopez Munoz, especially our last game versus Nashville. I kind of touched up on it, but he looked really dangerous. Whether he got a shot on goal or not, he made space for other players. Dribbled through guys like it's butter. He's going to be a fierce competitor for Hernan, and I can see him going to Europe in about, I want to say 1 to 2 years time.
Yeah. Or maybe take an intermediate step, maybe not necessarily at Liga MX, because of course Kate Kell has those Mexican roots, and most of the U.S. men's national team players that go to Liga MX have some sort of connection in Mexico. Not always the case. Of course, we've had Josie Altidore and DeMarcus Beasley play there as well, but sometimes that's how it goes. And of course, Jonathan Bornstein as well with his lengthy career. Any San Jose Earthquakes players that you're looking out for ahead of this match, Casey?
Honestly, this is just how it goes for us against the Earthquakes. We are our own worst enemy. It does not matter. It is not any specific player. It is like, if something can go wrong for us, it will. And y'all seem to manage to just take advantage of the opportunities when we're playing away. I don't know what it is. If we're at home, I don't really worry about it at all. But away against the Earthquakes in particular, even in seasons where this has not been our issue, it just doesn't go well for us. So I don't know if we just, get up to the Bay Area and something about it scares us or what the deal is. But I'm personally just most worried about continued backline issues, because while the individual defenders are strong, we have not had a steady backline pretty much this entire season. Aaron Long got injured a few games ago against the Red Bulls. I don't know when he'll be back. So that's been interesting. So we're now trying yet another center back pairing. I think it's like our 5th different center back combo we've had this season so far. So I think that's probably my biggest concern, is always in my own house, I guess, against the Earthquakes. But something will go wrong. I'm not high on us. If I were going to gamble on this game, I would be betting on the Earthquakes.
I find it funny though, because the first 1 or 2 seasons that we played LAFC, like we kept getting dominated. We got our butt beat constantly, and that 1-5-0 loss, I can assure you, Casey, is still running through San Jose Earthquakes' heads like every single day. Like we think about that once, and we're like, oh man, why did that happen?
That's like the biggest.
So there is that chance.
For us, aside from that big Seattle loss when we were first covering Tectonic Takes, and Amaya was just distraught after the press conference. Like he couldn't believe what he saw after the match. Those are one of the ones that live in infamy. That, and of course, when we snuck into the playoffs with the Marcos Urania goal, and then Vancouver beat us by 5-0 as well. So that's part of that Mount Rushmore of infamy.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like I wonder if I'm the curse as we're talking through this, because we did great when I lived in LA. LAFC would beat San Jose up here just fine. And then now, ever since I moved up, it's just been bad. So I think maybe it's my fault. I don't know.
I can hear LAFC fans typing, Casey, get an Airbnb quickly in LA this weekend, please.
Well, the funny thing is I'll be in LA this weekend, so maybe if it goes differently than we do know, I just have to leave. That's all on me. I got to take it for the team.
The curse might be out there.
Right. And of the players that featured on our bench in our last game, I'm looking at Preston Judd as a potential game changer. Whether he gets a start, maybe you try something different. I wouldn't recommend starting Abobasi on the wing, or maybe if Abobasi returned to the bench, or if Kikanovic was the one who made ways for potential Preston Judd start. I think whether he starts on the bench or starts at the first minute of a game, he's been one of the more consistent players. You agree, Devon?
I agree. And I just want to make note that the reason Jeremy Abobasi came to San Jose was specifically not to play on the wing.
Yeah.
He was placed as a winger in Portland Timbers, and he specifically did not want that and wanted a team to play him at the 9. So I don't think we will ever see Abobasi as a winger in the foreseeable future. However, we do have Kikanovic and Pele fighting for that winger spot. They're going back and forth. Pele with 1 goal, I think Kikanovic with 2, if not more. So they are a 50-50. I'm not sure who's going to start. I would like to see Benji Kikanovic start and Pele finish off for this for the match, specifically because of Benji's pace. I think Benji's pace can really knock down some LAFC, some of their stamina. And then, when Pele comes on, he doesn't have to run as fast. He doesn't have to run as hard. He can take longer distance shots because that enables LAFC defenders to attack him or push higher. So I can totally see that. And, Jeremy Abobasi has kind of been on fire as of late. I think he's going to beat Preston Judd in the lineup. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. I'm really excited. I'll be there like 2 or 3 hours before the game. That's how hyped I am.
Yeah, and that's what you gotta do whenever you're facing either LA team. If you can make it a whole occasion, get there early, hang out with your friends, because it really is a fun atmosphere. And for the second episode in a row, we're talking about a new arrival of the San Jose Earthquakes. We got Jacob Jackson. He's coming in to bolster our goalkeeper situation here. What do you make of that addition, Devon?
Honestly, I'm gonna be 100% with you. I have never heard that name before. I don't know who Jacob Jackson is. However, I trust our analytics team. I trust our FO. I trust that they made the right decision, and I also trust our goalkeeping coaching staff. They're one of the best in the league, and if they trust Jackson, then I trust Jackson too.
Yeah. So the way that I make sense of this move is just to shorten the leash slightly on William Yarbrough, because while I don't believe he's been as bad as much of the national MLS coverage makes it out to be, that our goalkeeping has been atrocious, I do think that a little competition there can help. But I think the biggest benefit of bringing in Jackson is that it allows Emi Ochoa and our other goalkeeper, Bijanski, I believe, that they'll be able to develop more in the MLS Next Pro level, whether they're splitting games or something. But I think for Emi Ochoa, I think the worst case scenario can be is that you're required to be that backup goalkeeper, and even if you don't play a single minute because you're on the match day roster for MLS, you can't be also in MLS Next Pro. So I think that that's going to help shape things up for the time being. But of course, when we get both JT Marcinkowski and Daniel back, whenever that is, even if it's ways away, we now have 6 goalkeepers on our roster somehow, which most of the time you see no more than 3. So, as much as San Jose Earthquakes happens to have some depth issues here and there, just like the U.S. men's national team of the 2010s, the one place you never have a depth problem is the goalkeeper.
We're like the Charlotte FC of the Western Conference right now.
Oh, yeah. But another aspect of it is Jacob Jackson, even though he only played 2 games for the senior New England Revolution team, he mostly featured for their New England Revolution 2 MLS Next Pro team, is that this is a MLS franchise that has sent Matt Turner and Petkovic to London-based clubs in the Premier League at one point or another. So they know what they're doing when it comes to recruiting goalkeepers anyway. So the fact that maybe they let this one slip and we got a hold of him, maybe he's not going to be quite as good as them, but that's okay. We're going to welcome him with open arms, and we look forward to that. And the main guy that you're looking forward to coming in the summer, Olivier Giroud, has that encouraged you to watch more AC Milan teams, even beyond Pulisic and Musa reasons, Casey?
No, I am very familiar with Olivier Giroud, as is pretty much any woman I know who's a fan of the sport. But
Yeah.
very
attractive man.
Also from his time at Arsenal, and I've been obviously the man is nice to look at, so we won't take that away from him. But on the field, I've always been a big fan. I know his skill set pretty well, and he has not dropped at all, really. Like, people who are Milan fans are sad to see him go and wanted to see him stay because he is still contributing that much. I think he's going to wipe the floor with the MLS, frankly. I think he's going to have almost a Zlatan-esque run. So I think he'll be really, really fun. I cannot wait for him to come. I am only bitter that he apparently can't come until August, because I really wanted to do like a Bastille Day home game, given the number of Frenchies we now have on our team, where like the giveaway was an LAFC beret and we all brought our own baguettes. I was like very excited about this, and now we can't do it because I guess he can't come till August. So,
Yep.
Oh well.
There you go. And I feel like their skill sets between Giroud and Bouanga up top are going to be very complementary to each other. And I think one way we can agree with each other is our disdain for LA Galaxy. So we'll start with Casey and Devon. What's the thing that you dislike most about LA Galaxy right now?
Oh, right now? Oh, he just annoys me, man. Oh, he annoys me so much. I dislike him like with a passion. Everything about him irritates me. He's like number 1 on my most irritated thing about the Galaxy list. And then also just like they're just bitter about everything, and then they accuse us about talking about them too much, and I don't know. There's nothing really to like about them at any point.
Yeah, and I know it's a long list for us, but what's the thing they hate most about Carson if you had to decide today, Devon?
The fact that we keep losing to them.
Yeah.
We've lost for like half a decade and we haven't had a chance to win yet. Let's get a win, please, against Galaxy.
Yeah, like we got the moral victory in terms of, okay, we erased the memory of the opening day disaster by, okay, we were competitive in 4-3 loss, but I don't give an F anymore. We got to win the next time we see them. That is my one-track mindset the next time we face Galaxy. That's for damn sure. And My final question for both of you is to fill in the blank. So either San Jose Earthquakes or LAFC will win this game if blank happens. So, Casey, LAFC will win the game if.
LAFC will win the game if we give Mueller more minutes and our back line keeps it together.
All right. Devon, San Jose Earthquakes will win this game if.
This is going to be a little wild take here, but this is why it's called Tectonic Takes. San Jose Earthquakes will win the game if Hernan Lopez Munoz touches the field in the second half of the game.
If he touches grass, which is something I recommend all of our listeners do. We love you all. Just make sure that after you finish watching this podcast, remember to enjoy this beautiful weather here in the Bay Area. It's nice to see more consistent 70 degrees. And
I bet it's just as nice down in LA.
Touch grass, trust me. And because you're here and you're also a fan of Oakland Roots, how excited are you for the U.S. Open Cup game between Oakland Roots and San Jose Earthquakes?
It's finally happening. I can't wait. Except for I will be on a plane to Sweden while it's happening, so I will not get to go, which is a bummer. But could not be more amped. I think we're finally going to get to see it, which is great, and it's a chance for a little revenge on Fisher if you're, for the Roots fans.
Yeah, that's another united front we can all agree on, along with the Galaxy stuff. That it's a situation that we're not pleased that things have gone the way they did with the Oakland A's, for example, and people are concerned for those reasons as well. It's going to be an electric atmosphere, just as it was between Oakland Roots versus El Farolito. We had San Francisco versus Oakland, so it's only fitting we have Oakland versus San Jose in a very rare occasion, because usually there's not overlap between the Oakland and San Jose-based teams. There's a bit more synergy there. It's always been for NFL and Major League Baseball, it's been San Francisco versus Oakland. What an exciting U.S. Open Cup match that'll be, right, Devon?
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yes.
I think we're going to see a lot of the homegrowns starting in the starting 11. So a lot of us, including Abram, who's a huge fan of Quakes 2 / Town FC. I think we're, especially him, he's looking forward to seeing all the homegrowns and people who haven't normally played for the first team play against Oakland Roots. And, that clash, the invisible clash with Ben O'Nagel as the Town FC kind of like business owner against his former ownership team coming together. I think this is gonna create some sparks in the stands, as well as unification. Apparently we're gonna have some Fisher out protests in the stands. So I'm also looking forward to that.
Yeah. What does the U.S. Open Cup mean to each of you? Either of you can go first for this one, because it clearly means a lot to us for different reasons, even if it doesn't show in Major League Soccer as a whole, barring the 8 teams that are sending their first team squads.
I'll let Casey take the realms here.
Sure. I think for me, it really symbolizes like the potential of U.S. soccer. And that's always what I've liked about it, is because you learn about new teams that you didn't know about. And it's been about exposure to these more grassroots teams, because you hear about MLS, but sometimes if you're newer to it, you don't know about them. Like Roots versus El Farolito, I thought my mom was going to buy El Farolito merch. Like, I really do think she was going to do that. She was so in love with them. And I'm like, Mom, we're Roots fans. You gotta cut it out. But that's been always what it's about to me. So it's been super sad to see. Sorry, my dog Root Beer is acting up. He wants to talk about U.S. Open Cup, I guess.
Hi, Root Beer.
Root Beer. I'm like, Root Beer. Sorry, he gets fixated on stuff. Okay, he's up off of what he was doing.
There we go. We got the quick side of the adorable dog.
Yeah, visual of the whole room there. But that's for me always been what the U.S. Open Cup is about, is the opportunities for grassroots teams to have exposure. And I'd love to see MLS teams actually sending their full strength squads again, because that was part of what made it fun. And we could do this and invest in this tournament instead of the other ones. So
I think for me, it's all about heritage. Just the whole history behind it, and wanting to throw it away really hurt my heart. And, after MLS released that statement, it's nice to see a bunch of teams and fans of the teams coming together in unification to say, hey, we want this cup back. It means a lot to the MLS teams in like the lower standings, like the San Jose Earthquakes, because it gives us a chance for a Champions League playoff or a Champions Cup playoff spot. So that's the reason why I hope we win it. But in terms of why I love the U.S. Open Cup in general, I think it is heritage. Um, there's just the competition between the USL teams and MLS, and the fact that a USL team has potential to beat MLS clubs to get to the final, like Sacramento Republic did against Orlando City. They came so close yet so far to getting a Champions Cup spot. That's what I love so much, is that fierce competition between the two leagues in one unifying cup. I hope in coming months we get a new reform proposal from the league to have all clubs come back, despite League's Cup already being intertwined with League Play or whatever. I think U.S. Open Cup stands out as a prominent leader for non-MLS competition.
So I have a lot of thoughts based on your answer there. My first ever U.S. Open Cup was when Sacramento Republic hosted Real Salt Lake. And granted, a lot of their Real Monarchs players were on that matchday squad, but it was a famous cup set there. Sacramento Republic were able to advance. And then, of course, years later, in the wake of defeating the Quakes and Galaxy and Sporting Kansas City, they ended up reaching the final against Orlando City. It does show that, just like in any cup competition across the world of soccer, that there is room for everybody. In the way that North American sports usually work, and the Arizona Coyotes, unfortunately, are the latest sacrifices, that once you hit that carrying capacity, if you're trying to expand, you're usually at the expense of another existing market there. But with the cup competitions, even if there is a finite limit to certain league structures, you can connect those separate leagues together into this awesome competition. And it's about respecting all these different soccer communities. And across the world, when teams win or lose in cups, it really does elevate the community and bring excitement and joy to a city, and is something that I think that deserves a lot more respect and recognition. And with the FA Cup situation, with the eliminating of replays, the excuse of fixture congestion when you're replacing those matches with expanding other competitions or getting involved elsewhere, it doesn't actually work. So similar case with the U.S. Open Cup. If you're worried about fixture congestion, then why did you introduce a new competition in that case as well? Where I feel like the biggest function of that competition, as much as it was entertaining to watch last year, and I'm sure it will be this year, was maybe a little bit of an ego boost and licking wounds after getting our butts kicked time after time in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Now we have this kind of more tilted competition where it almost entirely takes place in the United States, and we get our opportunity to get our lick back there in different circumstances. But we'll see what this match holds between LAFC versus San Jose Earthquakes. That point against Nashville felt like a bottle of water in the Sahara, and we'll see if it turns into Niagara Falls, if we can get more and more points with more regularity here. Any final thoughts on this match, Devon?
I have a question for you, Ivan, actually.
Cool.
Do you think Luchi Gonzalez is going to make it as San Jose Earthquakes manager until Leagues Cup?
I think it will go a long way in his direction if we can get another result in this game against LAFC. Even a draw would probably help because, of course, LAFC are a good team. But we need to see another win soon, if not this game, in the next couple games. And I don't think a win against Oakland Roots, with all due respect, I love Oakland Roots, but the U.S. Open Cup win is probably not going to help his case. It can only hurt his case if they do lose the Oakland Roots. But I wouldn't make a decision on him either way based on the U.S. Open Cup game. I think we got to see what May holds. I think that for all MLS clubs, this is a big month to see whether they're going to sink or swim this season ahead of a lengthy international period. Of course, not a lengthy international break, but a lot of eyes are going to be on Copa America and the Euros, which there's going to be quite a few MLS players featured in Copa America and maybe a handful, such as Daniel Gazdag, in the Euros. So it's going to be an interesting period. But yeah, right now, if I had to put a percentage on it, I still like Luchi Gonzalez's chances. I think he's like barely passing, so let's say 70%. I think that one down period after making the playoffs last year. It's going to take one more slide at least to put him into peril. Do you think that he's in more danger than that?
No, I completely agree with everything you said. So
all right,
I just wanted to see your take.
Yeah. What are some final thoughts you have on this game, Casey?
I think it's not going to be 0-0. I think take the over.
Absolutely.
That would be my advice is take the over. I think this is, I'm convinced I'm cursed at this point on the away leg of this. But again, if it goes differently, then maybe that's why. Just because I'm gone this weekend. But I think this is going to be like a 4-3 situation. I don't think this is going to be low scoring. So at least we should all be in for a fun, chaotic time.
Another 4-3, Devon. Brace yourself.
Here we go.
Yeah, strap in your seatbelts. Where can people follow you? I know you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, but just give us another reminder, Casey, for anyone who wants to see your soccer content.
Sure. So I'm at Casey's on the Case on every platform. TikTok is where most of my soccer content lives. I am expanding to YouTube slowly but surely because it turns out that's harder to edit. But yeah, you can find me there, Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it. If you go on Instagram, it's a little more lawyer, but it's still soccer. So you can find me literally anywhere. Casey's on the Case.
All right. We will not object to supporting your content there. Another, lawyer.
Great fun. Love that.
Down in the description.
Yeah.
Down in the description.
And you'll find Devon and my socials as well as Abram, who regrets that he couldn't rejoin us during this conversation. Be sure to follow us all. And Casey and I will also hopefully be on Soccer Crush podcast this summer when they do their mid-season MLS roundtable. That's going to be exciting. So a lot of great content on the horizon. And we look forward to what's going to be an exciting game. I know I'm looking forward to a fun week ahead with LAFC at Levi's and then the Oakland Roots Quakes US Open Cup game. And that'll be it for us today. So thank you, Casey and Devon and Abram. Thank you all for listening. Go Quakes and have a good one.